this thing working? Wow, this is actually working. Okay. Let me check the audio. Oh, this is actually working. Okay. Okay, looks like this is working fine. Okay, let's do this. Probably not a good idea to have Authy on screen. Okay. This is fine. Let me just edit this real quick. Monetization is off, just the way I like it. And is it keeping an archive? It should, hopefully. Hopefully it's keeping an archive. I'm not going to really care if it's not. It usually does. Okay. Let me just get a link for this. I haven't checked my YouTube analytics in a very, very long time. Get a shareable link. Okay. And let me just put it here so that way people can watch. I'm streaming myself working on it if anyone wants to watch. Streaming myself working all of this if you wanna watch and ask questions. Okay, that should be good. How many people are actually going to watch? Probably a whopping 0. I don't really care though. Okay, for the sake of the archive, I might as well give an intro. This is mostly just for documentation purposes and everything like that. It's not really for like anyone actually going to watch this. I don't expect people are going to watch this. My channel, from the perspective of probably most people, is a dead channel. I don't really care. Also, the fact that I'm able to display both of my screens to YouTube like this is, surprising to say the least. I didn't think this would work. I was gonna drop the stream if it didn't let me, but sure, okay. It's dropping 27% of the frames, but, sure. Anyways, this is going to be me progressively coding this light novel import program. Let me just gush about the stupid screen situation for a second, because basically I have 2 super ultra wide monitors, and the fact that I am sending YouTube a resolution of, what is this, 5112 by 2880, and the fact that it's like able to actually display that. The stream's current bitrate is 39,369 kilobits a second. Yeah, I think that's definitely a lot higher than most streams considering the size of my screens. Now, why is my bitrate so high? Because look how big these screens are. And I don't care to downsize my screens and hurt my productivity by reducing the amount of screens. So let's just say this is a lot of screens. Anyways, what am I working on right now? Let me keep Discord chat open. Let me keep that open. And let's do this. So, basically, I'm just checking to make sure that the stream looks like it's working. And yes, okay. So, I'll go over what this project is because I've never actually done a video explaining what this project is before, or how it's supposed to work or anything like this, which is odd because in the past I used to document like all my projects like this, like the Neptunia cutscene maker project and all those fun things. But as the years have gone by, I haven't really done this quite as much, which I feel this is actually something that people might genuinely use aside from me. Like the Neptunia Cutscene Maker project, turns out like I expected nobody use it, and a few people actually ended up using it, and there was a little bit of interest in it. But in honesty, it was just not a very good project for someone other than me that has the determination of just banging my head into a wall to get it done. Then some of the other projects I worked on just weren't really something that I could make public, just because like they're not something that people would generally care about. This is something that I feel like people could genuinely use aside from me, so I don't see any real harm in streaming my work on it, just because I feel like it would be interesting from a documentation point of view. So the idea is as follows. Basically, there is a light novel and anime series that I really enjoy called OreTwi no Inarimasu. It's basically really, really stupid Power Rangers on crack with twin tails. And the anime left off on a cliffhanger, and the show is really, really fun, and the characters are fun. I'm like, I want to find out what happened after the anime ended. And it's legit my favorite series of all time, and it was never translated. So for years now, and I really mean it, for years now, I've been in the back of my mind thinking I want to find a way to translate this series so that way I can read it. And over the years, I've tried multiple different methods. I've tried seeing if I can get a community translation going. I've tried learning Japanese myself. I've tried seeing if maybe I could pay someone to translate it. And none of those were successful. Like, I genuinely had multiple different projects running to try to see if I could get it done by some means, because I just wanted to read it. And then ChatGPT comes out, and for the better part of over a year now, I've been experimenting with using ChatGPT in order to improve the translation output and to see if I could get a viable product out of this. And at a certain point, sometime around 6 months ago, I determined that it is very, very possible for me to do that, given what are these, like, shipping labels? Let me delete those. They don't matter. I determined after a little while that, yes, it is going to be very possible for me to do this, given some of the outputs I was getting. And I was documenting a lot of it on, what's this thing called? Let me just do docs. So my results are documented over here. I will put the link in chat. And this entire thing was translated solely using ChatGPT, and also some other people, like I think Wind Hydra right here was able to actually read Japanese, and he was helping for a little while, but I'm planning on doing this entire thing myself. And over the while I've been doing this, my translation methodology and my prompting methodology has improved a lot, and it required me to actually learn how these AI models work in order to improve the output as much as possible. So at this point in the project, I've actually translated around 50% of Volume 2, and saying I have a beginner's understanding of Japanese is very much an understatement. Beginner doesn't even begin to describe it. I could barely string together a sentence. And I was able to translate half a volume. And according to people that could read Japanese, they said that the way the wording is done in this book is actually not very easy to read, because there's a lot of double meanings and hidden sentences and things like that scattered all over the place. So the fact that I'm able to translate 50% of the book with that alone is insane. Now, the catch is that this entire process, yes, it used ChatGPT to handle the bulk of the translation, but a lot of this represents also a significant amount of human copy editing, per se, meaning that I didn't just take it, put it into ChatGPT, say translate it, and it gave me this product. Rather, I took ChatGPT's output and attempted to actually understand what the intent of the story was in order to rewrite certain sentences and properly convey the meaning of the sentences. Because at the time, especially initially, so initially I was doing experimentation with GPT 3.5, and then once GPT-4 came around, it was a lot easier, and over time I started iterating the methodology and things like that. But throughout this whole process, the number one consistent element was that ChatGPT is able to provide me a baseline translation, something that is, yes, readable. If I want to, I could take this entire book, put into ChatGPT, say translate, and it will actually give me a fairly decent translation for all intents and purposes. It's readable. it's not fully understandable in a lot of cases. You will struggle in a lot of different sentences, but it's readable for the most part. And what I did is that I would go sentence by sentence and page by page, really mostly page by page, and tell it, okay, like, here's a good example. So I don't know what I did over here specifically, because I'd have to go back into here and literally reference each, because I started documenting each page number that I started doing in a different chat window. And what I did is I said to it, okay, what is the intent here? Just trying to understand what is the sentence trying to get across, and how can I understand that and take that to, how can I then rewrite it to better fit the meaning of the sentence while also being very clear to an English reader? The issue with translation is that you could do a one-for-one translation where it's 100% accurate, but it's not going to be easy or fun to read. You could do something that's very easy and fun to read, but it's not going to be accurate. You're trying to find somewhere of a middle ground where it's, but like, especially for something like this where it's a story. If you're doing something like a scientific paper or a legal document, then it's very important that regardless of the readability, that the intent comes across cleanly. But given that this is just a story, it doesn't really matter for all intents and purposes whether or not it is as accurate to the source material as possible. What matters more in this case is, let me just check the stream quality. Yeah, it looks like it is. We're still streaming properly. It looks like it's probably a little bit blurry to you guys, given the fact that it's trying to compress this much screen into this little, but not my problem. Anyways, I'm mostly here to document the project itself rather than anything else. If people were actually watching, I would care about it being blurry, but, you know, let me just type in chat. Sorry if it's blurry. My screens are too powerful for YouTube to properly handle. If you have two super ultra wide monitors, you might be able to see it correctly. Probably not, because it's just not doing it in the correct resolution or whatever, because it's downgrading it on my end even, but whatever. Anyways, so for a while it was just about documenting the, so it was just about, okay, can I translate the idea rather than the raw intent? Because if it's readable, this is a fan translation first off, and second off, I just want to understand the story. I want to read the story because it's a fun story. So even if it's not word for word accurate, as long as it expresses the intent of the story, that's more than sufficient. So I would go in here, and ChatGPT tends to prioritize accuracy far above that of it sacrifices the readability to such a degree that was unacceptable, even when specifically prompted to focus on readability. So it was a lot, and I mean a lot, of just back and forth manual labor of just correcting it to make things more clear in general. And as a result of that, I was able to translate half a book, but it resulted in well over 100, probably somewhere between 100 to 200 hours of experimentation in terms of the sheer amounts of back and forth of the texts of trying to learn this stuff. And keep in mind, this is not fully exhaustive of all the work I've done of these chats. I only started like really documenting page numbers around page 97, and page 97 is, well, very close to where the current project is at. So if you go into like, where is it? I think this one right here. Like, it gets very, very long. And where is this? This is only page 58 even. It's like all this is just back and forth and back and forth, page by page and page by page. And that's just 58 to like, what is it? Like 90 something, maybe 80 something. So like, you can see right there, like when I say I've put well over 100 hours into this so far, I really, really do mean it. So at a certain point, I'm realizing the limitations of this methodology, that in theory, yes, I can code a program to automate all this, but up until this point, my mindset was that it would be a diminishing return to a large degree, that I can theoretically do it, but the API cost will be too expensive and the complexity will be too high, and the results just wouldn't be what I would want, because I would have to go in here anyways regardless, and I would have to manually adjust everything. So I started experimenting with different methods of me not having to manually adjust things. And I'm not going to go over my full methodology right now because I want to actually do some coding instead of spending the next 2 hours discussing this. But to make a long story short, over time I managed to find a method and a series of methods that will actually hopefully eliminate the need for me, for the most part, of at least putting as much time into being a copy editor, and instead actually like just putting it into the database and getting back out a finished translation that's really solid. I'm still going to have to read everything over to a certain degree and make some changes, but it should be good enough that I could probably maybe finish the full thing in like the better part of a week per novel, instead of having to spend like a week per page or whatever. Usually it's a day per page, whatever. Usually it was like a few pages a day, but it was just very inefficient. So, anyways, what is my current methodology in that case? My current methodology is very simple. The first step, and I'll maximize this so that way you can see it. So this is a virtual machine that is housing a MongoDB database. MongoDB is a database, imagine like SQL, but it's not SQL. It actually functions and has a functional UI, as you can see, that's very beautiful and pretty and easy to use. And ever since I got off of SQL and decided, what if I try something newer than SQL? It turns out, yes, it's made things a lot easier. Screw SQL. Anyways, so how it works is that, so anyone that actually knows how to code can probably code all this in the better part of an afternoon. The problem is I kind of suck at coding. So this took me the better part of like 2 weeks now. So it's very simple. This is in Python. I suck at Python. The only coding language I actually do know to some degree is GML, Game Maker language. And keep in mind also, this isn't my first iteration of the code. This is actually my third iteration of the code, because I've restarted around 2 or 3 different times as the project has gotten more and more complex, in terms of that the code just got really stupid and overly complex. I'm like, there's got to be a better way to do this specific aspect. So basically, what I realized is, so originally, it was interfacing with an SQL database, and SQL databases can't handle array data within a single cell. So I was having, like, originally it was like for loops within for loops, and it was very similar to a previous project of mine. It was actually very similar to some of the data structures I set up for the Neptunia cutscene maker back in the day. I'm sure for an experienced coder, this isn't very complicated, but for me, this is hell. So, no, there's got to be a better way to do this. Considering databases are like a foundation of the internet, you can't tell me that databases don't have the functionality to store array data, which is like one of the most basic types of data constructs in existence. So I was doing a back and forth and asked a few people that I know IRL that know a little bit about databases, and they suggested this database to me. I'm like, okay, sure, let me figure it out. Turns out this database can handle array data to the point it's native, meaning that you can see right over here. If I open it up, well, you can't see because it's probably too blurry, but let me find a relevant section that actually shows it. Come on, give me one. Here we go. ID 28, so it has the sentence, and keep in mind there's annotations. I'm trying to log the annotations. So in Japanese, there are characters sometimes. So let me actually show a visual example and actually make it big so that way you guys can see it. Actually, what I could do is I could do this. I could just take the actual, or I could just open the epub. What's the best way to do this? Here. Or not. Screw it. Let me go straight to the source. Wait, no, I have it right here. Or do I? Okay, I'll do it again. Volume 2, copy, paste. And 7-zip, extract, text. So let me blow this up so that way you guys can actually see it and it's not blurry. Let's look right here. These two lines right here. So you can see this, that there's a Japanese character and there is something on top of the Japanese character. That is an annotation and it clarifies how the thing is meant to be read. There's a more complex one right here you can see also. So there's multiple annotations on top of multiple texts. Now, that clarification is not really optional. Up until now, I've been translating without it, but you're supposed to actually use it because a lot of the time, especially in this series, it's actually used to create and to show off a double meaning in the text. And a lot of the translation can actually be lost if I don't retain that. So how it works is I figured out that I could actually extract the EPUB files like I just showed you that I literally just did live right now, and it will separate the images from everything else. I'm skimming over a ton of research. Like the past 2 weeks was mostly just getting to this point where I figured this out, by the way. Like the past 2 weeks was not like iterating the same, like, what is this? Maybe 100 lines of code over and over again like this, that maybe 100 lines of code total. Like, the past 2 weeks was not iterating 100 lines of code total. It was actually trying to figure out how to do this. So, originally I was trying to figure out, okay, if I have the EPUB file, then I should be able to take that EPUB file and then figure out how to extract the images so that way the images aren't relevant and blah, blah, blah. And eventually I figured out, no, that's not needed. After like a week of running tests, I could just extract it and they're HTML files if I extract it. And then I'm really going off topic here, but TLDR version. Right now, how the code works is that it starts off with main.py. Main.py calls a database connection. Database connection will connect to the locally hosted database, which is the MongoDB right over here. And how this works is that it is basically saying to it, okay, I'm going to upload and download files from this database so that way I can do stuff. Let me make it bigger maybe so that way you can see it, or will it not let me? It won't let me. Too bad. Okay. Then what happens is it runs novelinput.py. Now keep in mind this is checking for HTML files or XHTML files. Because of the fact that when I extract the light novel, it is extracting it as either HTML or XHTML. And all it does is, it's looking for the Ruby tags, because if you open this up, so if I open this one up in a notepad editor, this is the contents of it. So what it's doing is it's looking for these Ruby tags right over here, because anything inside of a Ruby tag is usually text that... No. So the Ruby tags are the annotations, basically. So what it's doing is it's looking for the P tags, because the P tags usually contain the actual book itself, the contents of the book. And then anything within the Ruby tags are annotations on set text. And then on top of that, what happens is that the Ruby tags are also telling it what lines are being annotated, which saved me a insane amount of complexity of error handling and all this kind of stuff. So basically all this code does is check for those Ruby tags, and then it logs everything in Ruby tags, in volume, chapter, annotations, blah, blah, blah. So it was originally very complex with multiple for loops nested within one another and things like that. And then eventually, once I moved over to MongoDB and figured out, okay, I don't need to do that, I could just directly pass it straight to the database as an array value, then it made it a lot more simple. And keep in mind also, I didn't code this. I suck at coding. I was telling ChatGPT what I want to code and had a back and forth process of how we need to code it, meaning that it wasn't just as simple as me just typing in the code. It was as simple as me telling ChatGPT what I want, making sure ChatGPT is aware of what I want, making sure from that that there wasn't going to be any errors, because ChatGPT does sometimes cause some issues and things like that, and it was a back and forth process. So I've already tested all the database stuff. Theoretically, if I'm lucky, and if I stay up till maybe 2-3 a.m., I might be able to finish the entire program tonight, which is my goal. I doubt that's going to happen, but I'm going to give it a shot at the very least. But I've already tested the functions, and it seems to be able to import the text from the HTML files completely perfectly. So what I'm doing now is that I'm going to be working on api.py. Here's my nice little API key that I'm going to revoke after the stream. And what's going to happen is that I'm going to try to figure out with ChatGPT how to code this, and then to translate my incredibly complex translation methodology into a way that can actually be sent to ChatGPT and translated properly. And not translated as in Japanese to English, translated as in, this is how I want the translation to be handled. So I'm translating the directions of translation for the translation. So it's actually like, this whole thing has just been translation about translations. It's very Inception and meta-y. Okay, let's get started. So now we could get started. Now, the important thing is that the database is able to export as a JSON file, and thankfully ChatGPT very recently added a feature, if you're a pro member, which thankfully I am, that allows it so that way you could import JSON files directly to the API, which is huge, because that means I don't even need to spend a bunch of time coding things to extract the database and format it different ways and whatever. No, I could just pass the JSON file to the server. And also, apparently, it could store that JSON file, meaning that if it could store that JSON file, I don't even need to worry about sending it sentence by sentence or whatever. I could just send it the entire JSON file and say, translate this line through this line with this methodology or whatever it is. So right now, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to figure out the exact methodology for how I should actually do this. So what I mean by that is that I'm going to have to use GPT-4 1106 preview, because that's the one that allows for JSON files, and it's the newest and is the most powerful, even though it is more expensive. Right now, I'm simply trying to test whether or not the API actually does work correctly. So let me see this. My mistake for not giving it my current my current main code. So let me verify this. Okay, so let's do it like this. My bad. Modify the main code to integrate everything prior. Now, yes, I could go line by line and figure out how it's supposed to be done and how it's supposed to be modified, but that would take time that I don't care to take, and also it means I can cause an issue if I do something incorrectly, and I don't really care enough to learn it correctly right now. I'm sure it's a valuable skill for me to learn Python correctly, but right now I just want to read a stupid book, so I'm basically telling ChatGPT, code it for me, and it can do it. So I'm going to turn on some music so that way I can focus better. And what it's now going to do is hold on. Sorry about that. Okay. So what's happening now is that it's going to give me modified code where it basically takes the previous code and integrates it into the new one. So that way there's no possibility of me messing something up. On top of that, keep in mind that this is a custom GPT that I had it made just that so that way it's able to do coding a little bit easier. And this happens sometimes. I've been using a bunch of jailbreaks and all kinds of other fun stuff that just really stress the model. So when this tends to be every prompt where it just breaks something. Okay. So let's see its output. Okay. Here's the updated main.py. Import OS, blah, blah, blah. Import API, importing our API module. Def main file path, blah, blah, blah. Okay. It looks like the script processed the first XHTML file with parse XHTML from... Okay. Remember to revert any changes if you want to enable the database functionality. Also ensure API.py is properly set up with your API key. Run main.py to test the full integration. Everything is set up correctly. You should process blah, blah, blah. Oh, shoot. It did something funny. Okay, it looks like it's actually going to try to tell it to translate something when I don't want it to do that right now. Screw it. Let's do this anyways. Let's see it break. For sentence data and sentence data message, blah, blah, blah. Let's just see what happens. It's probably going to break, but let's just see. Why not? Attribute error. None type object is no attribute volume 2. Okay, how about let's actually have the code work correctly, so that way I know what it's actually trying to do. Okay, so clearly it's not my code. That it is my code, but that's my commenting that out didn't fix it. What's wrong? Is it possible it just can't find volume 2 XHTML? That should be in documents. No, it's right here. Okay, it's erroring out again, which is typical, and what's going to happen with this, hopefully, is that it will actually run. Wait, no, okay. As it indicates in DB connection, PY is none. Okay, how about this one? Screw it. Let's make it a lot easier. Screw it. Let's make this easier. Let's disconnect the API stuff from the database stuff entirely for now. We will connect it all later. For now, I want it to have a generic Japanese sentence passed to the API for testing. Understood. If we disconnect the API functionality from the database operation for now and focus on we could adjust the code accordingly. We could use generic Java. Let's modify. Okay, modify API. Okay. Translate text. Okay, I see. I see how it did it. Okay. Main.py. No incomplete code. Once again. Give me the full main.py. This is what I have now. The reason I am angry about this, that didn't give me the full main.py, is because it told me to modify main.py just immediately before. Meaning, if it's telling me to make a change now to main.py, but doesn't tell me what specifically it wants me to change, I don't know if it wants me to revert the previous code or to keep it in. So it's easier for it to just tell me, do this exactly, and I just copy and paste it. So that way we're fully aligned, because if we're not aligned, that's when errors start to happen. This idiot. Wrong. If you do that, it will break functionality for the other parts of the code once I integrate it all back later. The only thing I want you to do is take the code I gave you, the code we are working on. Leave any and all database stuff alone entirely. If using that database code will cause comment out any database code that will cause the database to be called, so that way the code ignores it, but leave the values and code in so that I can just uncomment it and get it working later. We are only modifying the API code right now. Stupid AI. Wrong. If you do that, it will break functionality for other parts of the code once I integrate it all back later. The only thing I want you to do is take the code I gave you, the code we are working on, leave any and all database stuff alone entirely. Comment out any database code that will cause the database to be called so that the code ignores it, but leave the values and code alone so I could just uncomment it and get it working later. We are only modifying the API code right now. Okay, that should hopefully fix it. Or hopefully get GPT to align properly so that way we could actually do this. I'm reading the API stuff right now that it did. Okay. I see what it did. Okay. Call the translate text function with Japanese sentence. Okay. Looks like this code is not important. Okay, I see. Stupid thing. It killed half the imports. I don't know if it matters that I remove those imports, but I'm not going to remove them in case it's being stupid. Let's just copy from def main. Stupid AI. Okay, should be good enough, I think. And of course, it can't see it. Of course it can't. Of course it can't see it. How is it supposed to see it? I don't know how this stuff works. Okay. Translate text is throwing an error. The code is yellowing it. How about this? All you need to do is... No, okay. Make sure the code you gave me actually functions alongside the API code you gave me, you piece of filth. I can berate the AI. It would make it more. It would make the stream more funny, but I'm not going to unless it gets really bad. Okay, and to make its job easier, this is the current API code. I have no idea how this stupid code works. I can read it to a certain degree, but I can't code this because I suck at this. So if this stupid thing wants to be retarded, then I don't know what to do. The issue seems to be with... Go on. Let's go. Stupid AI. I'm definitely playing this up a bit for the camera. But, it makes it more entertaining. It's like how AVGN is funny, even though everyone knows it's just a character. It's also more fun for me. Okay, the issue seems to be with the way translate text function is called in main.py. The translate text function is defined correctly in your API script. However, the function is called main needs to be adjusted into... Okay. It didn't change anything. It didn't change anything. Let me try it. This stupid thing didn't change anything. You literally didn't change anything. Also, you removed the import functions from the code from earlier. Import OS and from novel input import parse XHTML. It's going to struggle if you give it gibberish right now because it's confused. It's better with very specific questions, but not too... I know that. I do know that. It's just more fun. Hold on. Yeah, so I know that. It's just more fun to yell at it, though. Let's be real. It's more fun to yell at it. Also, like, this is pretty basic. Like, I don't know why it's struggling here. It's really stupid. Like, I'm sorry if it gives me this and then gives me the... You know what? Screw it. I'm gonna check something. Okay. Check if two paragraphs are the same. Oh wow, the only different is a comment. The only different is a stupid comment. Like, when it gives me the exact same text twice, and when I tell it that previous code didn't work, yeah, I'm gonna yell at it, even if, yes, it's confused. I know how they work, that they're designed that they want to try to make the users happy, and that this doesn't really help, but it is emotionally satisfying to yell at something they can't yell back, because keep in mind, it's an AI, it doesn't really have emotion, so it doesn't really matter. Anyways, you didn't change anything, also you were, okay. Import. Remember, I am a beginner at coding. If you make changes, any changes, when I specifically state not to, you are creating issues. Your job is very simple. The line is yellow. What is wrong? From what I've seen in the past, it probably means it can't find that variable. And it probably can't find it if in api.py if it can't see it being initially declared in api.py. This is why I gave you the API code a moment ago. Stupid AI. Your job is simple. The line is yellow. What's wrong? What is wrong? From what I've seen in the past, it probably means it can't find the variable, and it probably can't find it and can't see it being initially declared in api.py. That's why I gave you the API code a moment ago. Or maybe not. I don't know how this stupid stuff works. The first code snippet you gave it was closest. The only issue is that it couldn't find HTML document because the path is wonky. No, so right now I don't want it to find any HTML documents. Right now I have that commented out, actually. So that was part of the earlier code where it was taking the document and simply passing it along to the database. I don't really care about that part of the code right now because I figured that out. I have that saved off as a checkpoint somewhere, meaning that I could refer to functional code of that whenever I want later on, and I could just continue modifying this to figure this part out. Right now, my sole concern is just getting this connected to the API and just having it translate a sample sentence. Yeah, I have no idea. And also it abbreviated again. Yeah, that's essentially what it gave you at the start, if I recall correctly. The open file was causing your error, so commenting out is fine. At the start, let me just see what it said at the start. None type object has a. Okay, this was the code it gave me before. The issue with this code is that it was integrating in the database stuff, which I didn't want it to do. But I can take this and figure out how it's actually supposed to call the API, which I don't understand how that works. You're probably going to want to clear that ChatGPT is already too confused this thread, if you ask me. I understand that, but actually it's beneficial, in my opinion, to not clear it, because keep in mind, this is GPT-4 Turbo, so it has 128,000 a token context window, and I've been in this chat window for a very long time, so it actually has a very solid understanding of what I'm trying to do. So yeah, it's confused in terms of what I'm trying to do right now, but that is fine, relatively speaking, because it understands what the overall goal is. It's confused on what I'm asking of it, but it's not confused on what the overall goal is. And having to explain all that to it again would probably take too long. What would probably be easier for me is to say to it, let's start from the beginning. So, okay. You are confused. Let's start from the beginning. This is my current main.py code. It is B-E-A-U-T. It is beautiful. It functions. It gets the job done that I tell it to do. Most importantly, it doesn't have any errors. What I want to do is very simple. 1. I don't care about the database right now. Leave all the database code in there verbatim. Down to the period. All I'm looking to do is not. Okay, all I'm looking, because that might confuse it, is have it connect to the OpenAI API and translate a sample sentence of your choice. So you hard declare a variable with the sentence for testing purposes, and we tell the API to translate it. It is that simple. 2. I want any code that starts the. Hold on. Oh, I think it just comments exactly. Yeah, if I just comment out this right here, would it? No. How does it actually, like, start novel input is what I'm not understanding. Parse XHTML. This is so much different from GameMaker. Oh my god. I think if I comment out this line, that it should just not run it. If I do that, I think it should just not run anything except main. Yeah, that's what it looks like. Okay. I think that's how that works. Okay, 2. What that means is I want you to provide for me the exact verbatim code for main.py and api.py as we discussed earlier and as per these instructions. So in short, I run main.py. You are not removing any of the existing code, not one letter. You are going to, okay. The code is going to simply run api.py, and that file simply tells the code to access the GPT API and translate a sample sentence of your choice and output it to console.log or whatever it is called. I think that's clear enough instructions. Hopefully. It's still gonna mess up. Watch this. Watch this. It's still gonna mess up. You're confused. Let's start from the beginning. This is my code. It's beautiful. It functions. It gets the job done that I tell it to do. Most importantly, it doesn't have any errors. What I want to do is very simple. I don't care about the database right now. Leave all the database code in there verbatim. Do not, down to the period. All I'm looking to do is have it connect to the OpenAI API and translate a sample sentence of your choice. So you hard declare a variable with a sentence for testing purposes, and we will tell the API to translate it. It is that simple. What that means is I want you to provide me the exact verbatim code for main.py and api.py, as we discussed earlier and as per these instructions. So in short, I run main.py. You are not removing any of the existing code. Not one letter. The code is going to run, it's going to simply run api.py, and that file simply tells the code to access the GPT API to translate the sample sentence of your choice and output it to console.log or whatever it's called. Perfect. Okay. I think that should be clear enough to it that it should hopefully give me what I want. Okay, understood. Let's proceed to our current main.py and create a code. Okay. Oh, it already removed stuff like I told it not to. Thankfully, I know how to deal with this. Okay. I really don't care about this. Anyways. Shoot, what the? Oh, stupid VM. Okay, from okay. Def main. Okay. So I'm going to copy this into here. So the Japanese sentence, okay. Now, hopefully this should work. I think it will, but I don't know. Wait, no, I need the API code. Okay. Okay, let's give this a shot. Run, please work, please work. Okay. Trace back, blah, blah, blah. Okay. You tried accessing OpenAPI chat completion, but that's no longer support. I literally told it not to do chat completion. Where's my notes? Where's... Okay. As I told you earlier, in the notes I wrote, we need to do chat, not completions. This might not be its fault because it's probably going off of its own data of how the API should work. So I'm just gonna copy it the stupid the whatever this is called below is the what's a stupid thing called documentation from OpenAI on how that works. Please modify and correct. And as before, and please continue to do this. Please give me the full code without any abbreviations so that I can simply copy and paste it in. Okay. At this rate, I don't think I'm going to be able to finish the thing tonight. But I should be able to get a lot done. Okay, let's try putting this here. Oh, I messed up. I gave it the chat completions thing instead of the stupid, Oh, I messed up. Okay. How am I supposed to do this stupid thing? Tell me. Text generation, completions, but I don't need completions. I need not completions. OpenAI had their data yes. I like too, so pretty cool. Video, I'm not gonna go decline in stock value for Lehman. To yeah. Okay. So again, just so we're just gonna use and yeah, this is just the same CRT cool. How does this stupid thing work? I'm gonna cut the stream so that way I could actually